Hello everyone, FPL Wrapped here and welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel. In today's video, we've got a complete chip strategy guide. It was going to be a Game Week 27 preview video, but most of the questions were around how to navigate the back end of the season. Should you be using your free hit? When should I wildcard? And therefore, I thought I would do a complete strategy guide as to when I think are the best times to play your chips, which teams to target, and how to basically navigate the back end of the season. If you are enjoying the content here on this channel, please do remember to like, comment, and subscribe. But without further ado, let's jump into today's video. So guys, before we jump into today's video, I just want to give a massive shout out to the sponsors, Ultimate Champions. Ultimate Champions are the first free-to-earn fantasy football game powered by the blockchain. You essentially collect your favorite players as NFTs or non-fungible tokens. The better that those players do in real life once you've built your elite team, the more points you earn, and the more points you earn, the better the rewards. As you can see on screen, you can actually create leagues as well. So after you've started to build up your club, similar to how you would in like FIFA or different trading card games, you build up your club, you can then join different leagues and compete against your friends, and then you can actually trade cards on the market, so you can buy and sell different cards, and therefore you can actually earn some serious cash via playing this game. If you are interested in joining Ultimate Champions, the beta is not quite live, but we are soon approaching when the beta will be launched. You can do two things if you want to get on board with this project. Number one, you can follow their Twitter account. I will link that down below. And number two, most importantly, you can join their Discord community. I am in that Discord community, and by doing so, you can get all of the latest updates. You can get the chance for some free packs and also some different roles, which allow you different perks throughout the launch of the game. So I just wanted to say massive shout out to Ultimate Champions. Definitely get on board with this. Both those links will be in the description down below. So guys, let's get into having a bit of a discussion around chip strategy for the remainder of the season. I've got lots of different graphics here today, but I thought it'd be good to start with just what is the timeline for the remainder of the season looking like? When are we expecting blanks and doubles to go in? And start to talk about when you might want to play chips. Later on in the video, we will go into some specific chip strategies as well. So obviously starting with Game Week 27, we know exactly what's happening with Game Week 27 because it's the immediate game week. It's a blank and a double, which doesn't happen that often. We have three teams blanking. That is Arsenal, Liverpool, and Chelsea. Leicester were, of course, blanking, but now their game with Burnley is being rearranged into 27, which means that Burnley now double and Leicester have a single fixture against Burnley. With respect to Game Week 27, I personally don't think this is a very good time to wildcard. Of course, if you want to wildcard, you can. But just with the way that the fixtures swing in 28, 29, and 30, I think if you were to wildcard in 27, you'd want to load up on the likes of Arsenal and Liverpool. And as such, it might be tricky to do so when they blank in Game Week 27. So for me, and I think for a lot of people, the obvious chip to play in Game Week 27 is a free hit. As you can see here, I have said that there are a few times where I would play the free hit. I think if you have two free hits, it makes it a much easier decision to play the free hit in Game Week 27 because you've got the second one to fall back on. I think if you have sort of 5 or 6 blankers, maybe you've got like triple Liverpool and double Arsenal or potentially triple Arsenal, I think you're starting to look at a position where you might want to free hit there because you're likely to only have sort of 9 players, and those 9 players might not even be optimal. And also, I think if you're playing a late wildcard as well, because you're less likely to need the second free hit if you're going to wildcard into potentially like a bench boost in 36. So I think those are 3 reasons why you might want to free hit. Obviously, if you only have 1 free hit, or if you can field a pretty decent 11, or you're playing a wildcard in 28, you might not necessarily want to free hit. It is completely team dependent. I can't cover all of the different teams. But that's what's happening with Game Week 27. I do think it is a very good game week, very good free hit opportunity. Moving on to Game Week 28 and 29, I've grouped these two together because they're both pretty decent double game weeks, and obviously they've only announced a few days ago, so it is fairly fresh in our minds. I think there are lots of different ways you can approach Game Week 28 and 29, and it does largely depend on your wildcard strategy, etc. But you've got 2 pretty decent double game weeks. You've also got teams that are actually doubling that also playing some later blanks as well, so it can be a good opportunity to jump on quite a few players. For me, I think there are 2 ways you can approach this. I think if you wildcarded in 26, I would probably bench boost in 28. So if you were someone that didn't triple captain in 26 and you instead wildcarded, I think 28 should be a good opportunity to bench boost. So look how your team looks for 28, but assuming you pick the sort of players that I probably would have picked if I were on a wildcard 26, I think you should be set up with a decent bench boost 28, even if it's the likes of, you might have like Saka and Ramsdale against Watford on your bench. I do think it's the decent one, and because you've wildcarded quite early, you potentially don't want to save a bench boost for later on in the season because you just don't know what might happen later on in the season. Your team might be completely demolished by injuries and rotations, etc., and your bench might not be looking in a good state. And then the other way to approach it is if you haven't wildcarded in 26, I quite like a wildcard 28 strategy because there are quite a few fixture swings and we've got a really good double in 28. And if you wildcard in 28 for the fixture swings and all of the doubles, you can probably then bench boost in 29. So I don't mind that as an opportunity either. So wildcard 28, bench boost 29 is also good. Wildcard 26, bench boost 28 is another really good strategy. And then finally, in game week 29, you could potentially use your triple captaincy chip if you didn't use it in 26 and you've still got it in play, because Salah plays Brighton and Arsenal. So it's not the best fixtures in the world, but of course, I think if you're going to triple captain, Salah's a really good shout. And we've seen in this game week what he can do. Of course, the fixtures aren't as good as Norwich and Leeds, but I still think that's a decent opportunity as well. So 28 and 29, two relatively big doubles. For me, I think 26 was obviously a decent time to wildcard. I think 28 is probably, in my opinion, the second best time to wildcard this season because of the fixture swings, because of the doubles, and you can set yourself up for the sort of next 5 or 6 game weeks really well, and you can really attack 28 and 29. After 28 and 29, we of course have probably, or definitely, the biggest blank game week of the season. At the time of recording this, at the time of speaking, we only have 3 guaranteed fixtures in game week 30. Those are Leicester-Brentford, you've got Villa versus Arsenal, and Wolves versus Leeds. So they're the only 3 that are definitely going ahead. We could potentially have Southampton, Burnley in there as well, and a couple of other fixtures. But it looks like it's going to be a fairly big blank game week. So as you can see, as many as 14 teams could be blanking. We could have as few as 6 teams playing. As a result, I personally don't necessarily think this is the best time to free hit. The reason I say that is, yes, you will probably only have maybe 4 or 5 players, but when you've only got 6 teams to choose from, and when those 6 teams aren't necessarily the best teams to choose from, we're not like you've got the likes of Liverpool against Norwich or anything like that, I just think you're going to have players conflicting against each other, and you've got a very small pool of players to choose from. So I think if you can get sort of 5, 6, 7 players out, and they're the likes of maybe Jimenez against Leeds, you've maybe got Ramsdale against Aston Villa, you've got a few good players in your team, I think you can probably scrape by game week 30. So I think if you've only got maybe 1 or 2 players, or as I said here, maybe 3 or 4 players, and they're not ideal players, you might want to free hit in game week 30. I don't necessarily dislike it. And I think, again, if you've got 2 free hits and maybe you're not free hitting in game week 27, I really don't mind a free hit in game week 30. But for me, I think there are better opportunities either attacking a really nice game week such as game week 27 or saving it for one of the big doubles later on in the season. So for me, you need to bear in mind blank game week 30, but I would rather deal with that via free transfers. And again, if you already own the likes of Jimenez, Lacazette, Saka, Ramsdale, Luka Dean, Coutinho, these are all players that play in blank game week 30. So I think for most of us, we'll already have 5 or 6 blank game week players. So for me, I'm going to try and avoid the free hit in game week 30. Then you've got that little period following game week 30. Now, this might be slightly tricky to navigate, but we are lucky for a few reasons. So I've put here, this is quite a nice wildcard opportunity. The reason is, for those of you that aren't free hitting in game week 30, you might, what we say, like dead end your team into 30. What we mean by that is you might take a -4 or a -8 in game week 30 to bring in enough players that you have maybe 10 or 11 players in blank game week 30. If you do that, you probably don't want to carry all of those players into the back end of the season. So the opportunity you've got is to dead end into game week 30 and then wildcard out of that team in 31 and start loading up on players that necessarily don't play in blank game week 30, and then set yourself up for the doubles in the back end of the season. So I quite like the 31-32 wildcard strategy. Outside of that, I think game week 33 looks like it'll be one of the bigger doubles of the season, similar-ish in size to game week 28, game week 29. So that might be another opportunity to free hit. If you're not free hitting in 28 or 29, you're not free hitting in 27. If you've still got 1 or 2 free hits left at this stage, I quite like free hit 33 as an option. So that period following blank game week 30, I think it's a decent opportunity to wildcard, and it's a decent opportunity to free hit. And I think we should have doubles in maybe 31, 32, and 33, but at the very least, 33 looks like it should be a double game week. So that's what I would do in that period there. I do think that's a decent time to wildcard. If you're not going to wildcard in 26, 28, or 31, and you've still got your wildcard in the back end of the season, which I think I will do, I think game week 34 is a really nice time to wildcard. And if you don't need it in 34, game week 35. The reason I quite like it in 34 is I think a lot of us will free hit in 33, but the teams that have good fixtures from 31 and 32 don't really have very good fixtures from 34 onwards. So the likes of kind of like Wolves, Southampton have decent fixtures, Arsenal, they play in blank game week 30, they've got decent fixtures in 31 and 32, but they don't necessarily have the best fixtures from 34 onwards. So my current strategy is to navigate game week 30, free hit in 32, 33, and then wildcard after that free hit into the final few game weeks of the season. So I think 34, 35 is a really good opportunity to wildcard. And the other reason I quite like it is bench boost 36 looks like a fantastic opportunity, which we're going to discuss in a second. So if you wildcard in 34 or 35, you can really attack game week 36 with that wildcard. You can set yourself up with potentially 15 or maybe 14 doublers, and therefore you can have a really nice squad for the biggest double game week of the season in game week 36. And also, you can then also have, obviously, like I said, a really nice bench as well. So if you go into game week 36 then, like I said, it's likely to be the biggest double game week of the season. We have as many as probably about 14 teams doubling. I would assume that we'll have at least 10 teams doubling, a minimum of about 8. But I would assume around 10 to 14 teams doubling in game week 36. So I think, therefore, it's probably the best opportunity of the season to either bench boost, or if you've already used your bench boost in potentially like 26 or 28, I think you can definitely free hit as well. Yes, you won't get 15 doublers, but you might potentially get an even better team because you don't have to worry about your bench. So you can free hit with 11 pretty expensive doublers in your starting 11 and just go really cheap on the bench. So game week 36 is definitely worth. That's why, as we'll discuss later on in the video, if you only got one free hit, I would definitely be tempted to keep that one free hit for game week 36. However, you could potentially play the free hit slightly earlier and then just bench boost in 36. So I definitely think 36 worth keeping a chip of some kind for. And then you can see game week 37 to 38. I've just called it like last chance saloon. This is sometimes a nice opportunity to just keep one chip back, whether that be the triple captaincy, whether that be the free hit. I think free hit is often a nice one. If you've got 2 free hits and you don't necessarily want to use them, free hit in 37 or 38, number one is always pretty fun to keep a free hit for the last game of the season. You can really just basically have loads of 1 week punts and not care about the rest of the season because obviously it's the last game week. And also, I don't really like to play the EO game too often or the ownership game too often. I don't like to transfer players in if they're differentials or not captaining a player because they've got such high ownership and I want to captain a differential player. I don't really like to focus on ownership too much. But what I would say is when game week 37 and game week 38 come around, if you're 120k and you want to finish in the top 100k, you can maybe free hit a full team of differentials and really attack those final couple of game weeks. Or you could potentially, like I said, if you're like 2nd or 3rd in your mini league, you could potentially transfer in players that your mini league leader doesn't have. Or equally, and this is a very sneaky way to approach it, if you're 1st in your mini league, you might just want to transfer in that free hit in 38, the players that 2nd and 3rd have in their teams and basically just block them and not allow them to overtake you. So I do quite like, it's not necessarily the optimal way to approach the season, I don't think, but there are some decent reasons to keep your free hit or maybe like a bench boost or triple captaincy for game week 37 or game week 38. So hopefully that's been helpful for you. A little like 10-minute discussion there around the timeline for the remainder of the season. Hopefully you're now clear on what we're expecting with respect to blanks, doubles, and when you might want to start to play the chips. We'll now take a look at the teams to target based on this, and then I'll go through some different chip strategies based on if you have 2 free hits, 1 free hit, and talk about what I think is the optimal approach over the back end of the season. So guys, we did allude to it in the previous section, but I thought it would be good before we go into specific strategies and what you might want to do with your chips, just discussing 6 teams that I think are worth targeting almost irrespective of your chip strategy. Now, it will depend slightly on your chip strategy, but for me, whether you're free hitting in 30, whether you're not, whether you're wildcarding in 28, whether you're wildcarding in 31, 32, 33, 34, I think these are still teams worth targeting. And for those of you that aren't sure on your chip strategy and maybe you just want to wait, get through game week 27 with some transfers and maybe think from 28 onwards, these are still players worth bringing in because most of them, apart from Arsenal, play in blank game week 27 and then they have good fixtures from 28 onwards. So starting with Wolves as the team at the top, for me, these are probably the team to target from game week 27 onwards. I don't necessarily think the fixture in 27 is the best, West Ham away, but I don't think that's a terrible fixture. West Ham haven't quite looked as good as they were at the start of the season in recent weeks. But the real reason that I love Wolves is from 28 onwards, they've got the best fixtures in the league. They've got arguably the best double in game week 28. 29 against Everton's a really good fixture. They have the best, in my opinion, the best blank game week fixture in 30 against Leeds at home. And then the great thing about Wolves is not only do you get them for blank 27, blank 30, and having a double in 28, they also have nice fixtures in 31 and 32. Now, remember I said for some people, they might dead end into 30 and then need to wildcard in 31. If you have triple Wolves, you not only get a really good fixture in 30, therefore you don't necessarily need to free hit. You also get decent fixtures in 31 and 32 as well against Villa and Newcastle, which means that if you then free hit in 33, you might not need to wildcard until 34. So that's why I personally took a massive hit this week, brought in triple Wolves, because you get nice fixtures all the way to 32. You can free hit in 33 and then wildcard in 34. So that's the reason I like them. And Leeds are a really similar story as well. You can see they've got an okay fixture in 27. Tottenham really haven't looked great recently. The comment from Conte as well in the recent press conference about basically saying that he thinks he should be sacked and that the players aren't to blame and that he's to blame. It was a very, very strange interview. That would make you think potentially that they might have some difficulties in the dressing rooms. Obviously, I'm not going to go into the psychology now of team sports, but there's definitely something to be said for that sort of leadership style and that sort of press conference. But from So decent fixture, I guess, in 27 then for Rafinha and Leeds. It probably would only be Rafinha you'd want to go for, maybe Rodrigo or Dan James. Then from 28 onwards, they've got a very similar story. I don't think they have the best fixture in game week 30 because I think Wolves have looked pretty decent recently. But Leicester, Villa, Norwich, Southampton, Watford either side of that. And again, the great thing about Leeds is if you don't want a wild card until 34, you've got the same thing with nice fixtures in 31 and 32. Villa have, again, similar story with the blanks and doubles. They play in blank 27 and 30 and they double in 28. And the double in 28 is very, very nice. But the fixtures outside of that aren't as great. So West Ham, Arsenal, Wolves and Tottenham from 29 to 32. So I do still like Villa. But if we're looking at the fixtures in particular, I like Wolves and Leeds more than I like Villa. You've then got Arsenal, and I would argue that Arsenal from 28 onwards probably have the second best fixtures alongside Wolves. However, they obviously don't play in game week 27. So if you're targeting transfers this week, you're obviously not going to bring in Arsenal players because it's going to be at the expense of players in your starting 11. But from 28 onwards, they might have a double in 28 if Chelsea's added, but it looks like it'll be Chelsea-Norwich added into game week 28 as the double. So it'll be a single fixture against Watford, which might be nice for a bench boost. You've then got Leicester and Liverpool, not the best double, but it is a double. Villa in 30 is not bad. And then similarly to Wolves and Leeds, again, why I like tripling up on Arsenal is game week 31 and 32, the fixtures aren't too bad. So you can see the reason that I took a massive hit, if you have been following my transfers, I took a big hit to bring in triple Wolves and to bring in an extra 2 Arsenal players. So I now own triple Wolves and triple Arsenal. The reason is you get all of the fixtures from 28 to 30, you get them playing in blank game week 30, and you get decent fixtures in 31 and 32, which should allow you to free hit in 33 and then wildcard in 34. Similar story for Southampton, but we don't know for certain at the moment whether Southampton play in blank game week 30. So very similar story with the fixtures. Very nice fixtures from 27 to 31. Obviously not the best fixture in 32, so you might want a wildcard in 32 if you have like a triple Southampton. If they obviously beat West Ham, then they won't play in blank game week 30. If they lose to West Ham, it could be Southampton and Burnley then play in game week 30. So you'll get an extra fixture. You can have these Southampton players in blank game week 30, and they'll, of course, have Burnley. And for me, if that happens, and we should find out before the game week 28 deadline, between game week 27 and game week 28, if that happens, I'll probably be using 2 transfers to bring in the likes of Broja and Ward-Prowse, or maybe Broja and Livramento. I just think they're such fantastic value at a cheap price, and you get them for all of those fixtures throughout the next 6 game weeks. And then finally finishing with Burnley, of course, they have the double this week, so if you're going to bring in Burnley players, do it this week, otherwise you're sort of missing out on that advantage that you can gain. 28's not great. So if you're looking to bench boost in 28, or you've got a few other players with difficult fixtures, maybe don't bring them in. But assuming that you can bench the likes of Weghorst and Pope, I do like them as transfers in this week. And then from 29 onwards, really nice. Brentford, if they do get the fixture in game week 30, Southampton. City in 31 isn't ideal. So for those of you that are wildcarding in 31, I don't mind then. Obviously, if you've got triple Burnley, you might want to wildcard out of that in 31. But they then have Norwich in game week 32, which isn't too bad of a fixture. So hopefully that was useful for those of you that aren't sure on your chip strategy, or maybe that would just suit your strategy anyway. Like I said, if you're planning a late wildcard, I would argue that Wolves, Leeds, all of these teams pretty much, maybe not necessarily Burnley, but if you're planning a sort of a game week 34 wildcard as I am, I think Wolves and Arsenal in particular are 2 teams worth targeting. And then I also think that Leeds, Villa, and if Southampton get that game in 30 are also worth targeting as well. So let me know down below which of these teams are you targeting. Let me know if this is useful for you. As I said, this is the main reason I brought in triple Wolves and triple Arsenal, because now I'm set for the next sort of 6 or 7 game weeks without having to use my wildcard. So let's get into actually discussing some chip strategies when I think it might be worthwhile deploying each of those chips based on what I've just said in the timeline section and also the teams to target section. I can't cover all of the different chip strategies based on different amounts of chips that you have left. So what I've done is I've done 4 strategies if you have 2 free hits left, and then 4 strategies if you've got 1 free hit left. And in and around that, I'll discuss things such as bench boost, triple captaincy, and wildcard. Of course, if you don't have some of those chips, you'll just need to play around with it slightly and maybe just adapt it based on what I've said. So starting with strategy 1, what I've done is I've also incorporated game week 26 into here. So I know we're on to game week 27 now, but what I thought that'd be useful for is just to show if you wildcarding in 26 or if you triple captain in 26, how that might affect your different chip strategy. So if you are someone that wildcarded in 26, I assume you wildcarded with the likes of triple Arsenal, maybe a couple of Wolves players who don't have the best fixture. You probably have triple Liverpool as well. So I think for most of you that wildcarded, a free hit in 27 makes sense. I know for the likes, maybe like FPL Focal, Oscar, he wildcarded in 26, but he doesn't have the second free hit. So he wildcarded with some Burnley players to allow him to save the free hit in 27. So for some of you, you might be able to wildcard and not free hit. But I assume for most of you that wildcarded in 26, you're going to free hit in 27, which I think is absolutely fine. I then think if you wildcarded in 26, the players that you're likely to have, like I said, triple Liverpool, maybe triple Arsenal, you're likely to maybe have a couple of Aston Villa players, maybe a Southampton player in the well as well, like Broja or Livramento. I think you'll probably be in a really good position to bench boost in 28. Check your own team out, look ahead to Game Week 28, get on like a team planner of some kind or create your own spreadsheet. But I think you'll probably have a really good bench. Even if it's something like you might have, for example, it might be like triple Arsenal, like Ramsdale, Saka, and Lacazette, and then you might have one double game week player. I don't think that's necessarily a bad time to bench boost. The reason I like bench boosting in 28 if you've wildcarded in 26 is, like I said, I like wildcarding directly into a bench boost. Because if you wildcard in 28 and then save the bench boost for game week 36, anything could happen between a wildcard 26 and a bench boost 36. You've got sort of 10, 11 game weeks in that period. And I just think it's going to be tricky to get the optimal bench boost out that far down the line. So I think if you wildcard in 26, I like a bench boost 28 as an option. And then I also think if you wildcarded in game week 26, you couldn't have triple captained Salah, and you might not have triple captained earlier on in the season. So if you haven't triple captained earlier on in the season, you've still got it in the pocket. I would say that game week 29 is a pretty decent week to do so. You get Salah against Brighton and Arsenal. Again, they're not the best fixtures, but you've got Salah in a double game week, and I do think that's probably the optimal strategy rather than trying to pin it on someone like we saw the likes of Dennis and King had fantastic double game weeks earlier on in the season. That didn't go very well for us. So I think it's best to captain a reliable player in a slightly trickier double than going for a completely maverick pick. So I think triple captain Salah in 29 would be a decent option. So I think if you wildcarded in 26, you're probably looking at attacking the next few weeks for your fixtures like that. And then what you're left with, if you have 2 free hits, is you're left with just a free hit in 36, which again is a really nice strategy. 36 is looking like it will be the biggest double of the season. And like I said, it could be a great opportunity. You might even outscore those on a bench boost in 36. The only difficulty with this strategy is that you've then got to navigate 30 to 35 without any chips. We've got a blank game week in 30, and we've likely got a decent double in 33, and then a few doubles in and around that. You've also got the fixture swing that I spoke about around game week 34. Potentially there could be a fixture swing for some teams depending on which players you've got around game week 32. So the only difficulty you've got with strategy 1 is that you might struggle to navigate between 30 and 35, but you might be fine. We'll have to wait and see with the way that the doubles swing and the players that you've chosen, of course. Strategy 2 is around the fact that you, of course, most people did triple captain Salah in 26. So you triple captain in 26. I still then think that for most people, a free hit in 27 is probably optimal because most of us will have triple Liverpool, few Arsenal. You might have a few sort of naff players like Calvert-Lewin and Damari Gray against Manchester City, Josh King and Dennis against Manchester United. So a lot of us will want a free hit in 27. So you could triple captain 26, free hit 27. What then a lot of people are doing is they're targeting that game week 28 fixture swing. And I do really, really like this. The fixture swing that I'm talking about is that for a few teams, their fixtures become really easy in 28 or very nice in 28. And for some teams, the fixtures aren't necessarily that fantastic in 28 and you might want to jump off of them. The likes of Watford players, the likes of Manchester United as well. Even Manchester City's fixtures aren't ideal. So you might want to jump off Bruno. You might have like a Sterling or a Foden, a Cancelo. You might want to take some of those players out and then jump on the likes of Chelsea, who have a really nice fixture swing. And what you can also do if you wildcard in 28 is you can bring in a lot of players that double in 28. You can bring in the Southampton players, the Aston Villa players, the Leeds players, the Wolves players. You could probably get to a stage where if you wildcard in 28, you can target not only Chelsea for their fixture swing, but you can get maybe 9, 10, 11 double game week players. What I like also about if you wildcard in 28 is not only can you attack the doubles in 28 and the fixture swings, you can also get a bench boost in 29. And I do think the bench boost in 29, similarly to 28, is a really nice one. And again, what I like about that is you're wildcarding directly into a bench boost. So you can pretty much confirm that your bench boost in 29 is a really optimal bench boost. And therefore, I really like that strategy. And so similarly to strategy 1, because you're using a lot of your chips earlier on in the season, you can then, of course, free hit in 36. And in doing so, cover the biggest double of the season and the biggest disadvantage that you'll face by using a lot of your chips earlier on in the season. So these two strategies involve different uses of the wildcard in 26 or 28, but both of them involve using most of your chips before game week 30 and then just keeping one free hit or potentially one maybe you want a free hit in 29 and you can just keep one maybe like a bench boost for game week 36. So essentially what you're getting is using most of your chips before game week 30. The second two strategies is using most of your chips after game week 30. And for me, this is my current strategy. But the main reason that this is my current strategy is that, of course, I took that massive hit in game week 26, which basically allowed me to get close to a wildcard team. So I think if your team's a bit of a mess and you don't have a team well set up for the next few game weeks, I think the first two strategies probably make slightly more sense. Strategy 3 is around a triple captain 26 again, free hit in 27 again. And then you try and get through 28, 29, and 30 just using your free transfers. Now, I think, again, this strategy is most useful for those of you that have triple Arsenal, triple Liverpool, couple of Wolves players already in your team. Maybe you have a Southampton player, a couple of Aston Villa players. If you don't already have a team that's set up for 28 and 29, this probably doesn't make much sense for you. And I would probably wildcard in 28. But assuming you've got a team similar to mine, I think you can probably get through 28, 29, 30 with just free transfers. And then, like I said, you dead end into 30. You get out maybe 10 or 11 players in blank game week 30. And you wildcard following game week 30 into game week 31, 32. The reason I like this is you can get a really nice team out in game week 30, and then you don't have to worry about carrying some of these players through. Like I said, though, a lot of the teams like Wolves, Leeds, and Arsenal have decent fixtures in 31 and 32. And that's why, for me, I'm not currently looking to wildcard in 31 or 32. Of course, if there are different doubles announced in 31 and 32, that might lead me to wildcard slightly earlier. But for me, that's why I don't necessarily think that's the best strategy in the world. And then if you do wildcard in 31 or 32, you've still got that second free hit, remember? And because you probably want to bench boost in 36 because you've saved your bench boost in that earlier part of the season, I think a free hit in 33, 34, 35 makes most sense. So after that wildcard, maybe you don't have the perfect team for one of those weeks. You free hit there. You could even save that second free hit for game week 37, and then you do bench boost in 36. So I don't dislike this strategy, and I know a lot of other big content creators, I know Andy spoke a lot about sort of a game week 31, 32 wildcard. For me, that's not the best strategy, just because some of the players that I'm going to have when I'm getting into game week 30, like I said, once again, Wolves, Leeds, Arsenal, even to some extent Southampton, I don't think I need to wildcard in 31 when I look at my team. So for me, as you can see, there's a little asterisk next to it. This is still my chip strategy for the remainder of the season, and it's maintained itself pretty well, despite the fact that we've had different fixtures announced, despite the fact we've had doubles in 28 and 29 announced. I still think, for me, this is the optimal chip strategy. So I've triple captained in 26. I'll be free hitting in 27. Because I took that quite big hit in 26, I've already got 6 or 7 players for blank game week 30. I've also got 5 or 6 doublers for game week 28, and I think I have 7 doublers for 29. So for me, I don't need to wildcard in 28 or 29. My team's in a good position. I don't need to free hit in 30. And like I said, because I've got players that have decent fixtures in 31 and 32 as well, I don't think I need to wildcard in 31 and 32. I therefore free hit in 30 when there is a bit of a fixture swing, and then I can wildcard in 34 to then set myself up for the back end of the season and set myself up for a nice bench boost in 36. So for me, strategy 4 just makes the most sense, but that is very team dependent. I might sound like a broken record by saying that. It does completely depend on which players you already own. But for me, strategy 4 makes the most sense. So that's if you have 2 free hits left and assuming you've got most of your other chips available as well. Of course, if you don't have a bench boost, you can still play these. It just means you might need to think about that game week 36. If you don't have your bench boost still in play, I would argue that a free hit in 36 is probably the way forward to try and optimize your points in that massive double game week. So let me know down below, are you playing any of these 4 strategies? If not, what are your slightly different takes on this? I guess there'll be a lot of different combinations and permutations down below, but I'm always interested in hearing different chip strategies and trying to get us to think independently and critical thinking, because I think that is absolutely critical in FPL. So I thought we could just finish off with strategies for those of you that have 1 free hit left. And to be honest, most of these I've just deleted a free hit somewhere and then thought about how I might deal with that via free transfers. But there is some slight differences here. So starting with strategy 1, this is again for those of you that wildcarded in 26, but perhaps you don't have 2 free hits, you only have 1. I would still argue if you wildcarded in 26, you've probably done so in a fashion that means your team is not looking good for 27. Unless, like I said, similarly to FPL Focal, Oscar, if you did wildcard with Burnley players in your team, it might be, or Burnley players, maybe you've got a couple of like Southampton players in there as well. If you wildcarded with not free hitting in 27 in mind, you might be fine. But for most of you, I think you'll still need to free hit in 27. That then means that you don't probably want to bench boost in 28. The reason I say that is you're going to want something for that big double at the end of the season in game week 36. Because if you bench boost in 28, then what you've got no chips for game week 30 to 38, and I think you therefore will really struggle in the back end of the season. So free hit in 27, you don't bench boost in 28. You then triple captaincy in 29, because I still think that's one of the best opportunities. You might want to save your triple captaincy for like a game week 33 if you think there will be a better opportunity there. And then you save that bench boost for game week 36. So it is slightly different. Like I said, if you wildcard it and you don't need to free hit in 27, what you could potentially do there is wildcard 26, bench boost 28, triple captain 29, and then what you've got is you can save that free hit for game week 36, which I don't mind there. The second strategy is again around a game week 27 free hit. However, you free hit in 27 and you wildcard in 28. When you wildcard in 28, you have to set yourself up for 28, 29, 30, and then have a little bit of a think about how you might deal with the fixture swings around 33 and also the extra doubles as well. I would still try and keep that bench boost to 36 for that reason. But similarly to what I said with strategy 1, if you don't need to free hit in 27, you could always bench boost in 29 here and then free hit in 36. Hopefully this isn't too confusing for you guys, but I think there are different permutations based on whether you think you want to save the bench boost for 36 or the free hit for 36. Strategy 3, I think, is a really nice one. Triple captain in 26. You try and like dead end your team into 27, which I really like. So if your team's decent-ish, but you don't maybe have a Veghorst and a Pope or a Broya or someone like that you really want, maybe you take a -4 or -8 to dead end into 27. You then wildcard out of that team in game week 28. You then have a really nice team for 28. You bench boost in 29. Assuming that you've got a really nice team for 28, you should be able to also deal with blank game week 30. And also, like I said, therefore 31 and 32. You might then struggle when 33 comes around. But what you have got is you've then got your free hit for game week 36. So I do really like strategy 3. I think probably if I didn't have 2 free hits left, I think this might be my favorite strategy. The only issue you've got is game week 27. I know a lot of people want to free hit and your teams might not look great. But if you can get through 27 without your free hit, saving your 1 free hit for game week 36 for me does make a lot of sense. And then strategy 4 is similarly to my current strategy, but obviously you've only got the 1 free hit. So you still you triple captain in 26, for example, free hit in 27. So you still follow that strategy there. Because you don't have the free hit anymore, you can't free hit in 33 and wildcard in 34, but you can still deal with that, hopefully. What you would then do is you just wildcard in 33, and in doing so, you hopefully deal with that double in 33, and you also set yourself up to hopefully have a decent bench boost in 36. Of course, that's not ideal because you're wildcarding with 2 or 3 game weeks in mind as opposed to just 1, but I do still think that could work. So for me, if you've not already wildcarded, I think strategy 3 and strategy 4 are my favorite too. Do let me know down below again if you've got 1 free hit, which of these strategies do you prefer? These are not the only strategies that you can deploy. I probably could have come up with about 12 to 14 different strategies of all of these different chips that you've got. But for me, strategy 4 in the previous section for 2 free hit is my personal favorite. And here I like strategy 3 and 4 as well. I am currently deploying that strategy though, so there is definitely some cognitive biases here. I've got own biases based on my own strategy, so don't take everything I say with a pinch of salt. Don't take this as gospel. This is not an exhaustive list, but hopefully this has helped you to plan around that and start to think about when you might want to play your chips. So guys, there you have it. That is my complete chip strategy guide and when I think you should be playing your remaining chips across the remainder of the season. As always, make sure to deploy your own critical thinking. Make sure to create your own plan. Of course, use what I've said here to sort of organize your thoughts, but by all means, be creative with it. Don't just necessarily copy what I think is the best strategy because you'll definitely have more enjoyment with the game if you create your own strategy and that strategy is successful as a result. If you're enjoying the content here on this channel, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And also make sure to tune into our live stream tomorrow at 12 p.m. GMT. It's a lunchtime stream because I'm busy in the evening, so it's still a deadline stream of sorts, but we'll just be doing it a few hours before the deadline. For those of you in different countries, it might actually work out to be a better time for you. Maybe it'll be earlier on in the morning or later on in the evening. For those of you that are in the UK, hopefully you can catch it on your lunch break. Until next time, guys, thank you so much for watching. Cheers. Bye-bye.